a few preliminaries. Number one, I hope my voice and my face are aligned. I am in a hotel room with horrible reception, and I've had to actually come in by phone to hear most of this. The audio is by phone, the visual is by me. I apologize for that. Secondly, thank you for your kind introduction, Radwan. I am actually no longer the co-editor of the Journal of Democracy. I've been succeeded by my wonderful friend and colleague, Tarek Masood, at Harvard, who's now editing the journal with Will Dobson, but of course I'm deeply involved in it. It's a great honor to be on this panel. I've already learned so much and have so much admiration for everyone on this panel and the commitment and intellect and depth of knowledge you bring to this. I want to make a few other points and then talk about policy and talk about the future. The first point I want to say is to echo what Monica said, not as, as a democracy expert and a human rights committed person, not, of course, as an expert on Tunisia, which I'm not. There has never been asserted by Kais Saied or anybody else any allegation with any evidence that could justify the prosecution of Rached Ghannouchi. He is a political prisoner. Indeed, he is one of the most important and significant, historically significant for the reasons that have been articulated, prisoners of conscience against authoritarianism for democracy in jail in the world today. And the fact that there is not a concerted effort by the United States and the European Union to demand his release and to demand concrete measures to release all political prisoners, and as we've heard from the beginning, there are quite a number of them, and effect a serious timetable for transition back to democracy, is really a stain on the professed commitment to democracy promotion of the European Union and the United States. And, we can't escape the irony of having to note this on the very day today that President Biden has gone to the UN General Assembly to once again reassert an oral commitment, a rhetorical commitment to promoting democracy that has not been matched, I'd say, by any serious strategy globally or by the necessary specific, even modest steps that could be taken in a number of individual countries, including the Arab country that by far, has the best chance to get to democracy, because for about a decade, it was a functioning democracy, probably the longest stretch of Arab democracy in modern history. So this is truly highly regrettable. And I think we really need to pressure the Biden administration, particularly at a time when it wants space to pursue what is, I think, a potentially very alarming and disturbing deal with a tyrant, Mohammed bin Salman, that we expect better and at least some degree of balance toward the pursuit of democracy and the defense of human rights in the Arab world. The second thing I want to say is to echo what Monica and others have said. We should, whatever his mistakes were, and as I was listening to your list, Monica, I was thinking, well, check with respect to Aung San Suu Kyi, and worse, in fact, there in Burma. But I'm not into blaming the victim in this kind of circumstance. It's important to do the historical analysis, but he's now still a prisoner of conscience for democracy and for constitutionalism. In this regard, I do think we need to acknowledge, Radwan, more than you did that a lot of mistakes were made by democratic actors across the spectrum in Tunisia. I think we need more honest analysis of the kind of balance sheet that Monica, I think, very valuably gave us, and that Al Stepan, who was a very good friend of mine, would have given us. But we also have to note, okay, there was a lot of corruption. Let's be honest about that. That wasn't effectively dealt with. And there was a lot of aimlessness and divisiveness on all sides and actors with narrow visions. But, you know, this is not uncommon in a democracy. What there also was a massive failure of commitment and imagination, again, very specifically on the part of the European Union and the United States, to recognize that this was one of the most important democratic experiments in the world in the second decade of the 21st century, precisely because of its historical significance within the Arab world and the Middle East. And this is why President Sisi wanted it to fail. It's why all the Gulf states wanted it to fail and didn't lift a finger to help it. And it's why the United States and the European Union should have been developing a plan for massive economic assistance and investment to bet heavily on it. So I'll conclude by saying that I think everyone should read a really wise and intelligent piece, bridging, as I love to see bridged, the comparative literature on democratization with the literature on the challenges we face in the Arab world, and specifically in Tunisia. Several of you might have seen it by Sarah Henneberg, Sabina Henneberg, and Sarah Yerkes, and it's about, you know, what Tunisia can do to bounce back from authoritarianism with proper support. That's the title, May 2023, from the Washington Institute. And I won't represent their whole paper here. I'll just say, as someone who specializes in the comparative study here, I just think it's spot on. I think it's a brilliant analysis. And to hit the points quickly, you know, let's be, you know, to honor Rached Ghannouchi and his self-restraint, and I'd say his, certainly you look around at the alternatives, admirable commitment to a democratic vision for Tunisia, let's get serious about what needs to be done here. And what needs to be done here is to create the conditions for the kind of bounce back dynamics that we've seen in other countries to emerge in Tunisia. And these include unification of the opposition parties and of civil society actors. I mean, the secret, I often say, of democratic transitions, you don't need to be a brain surgeon to figure this out. You've got to unite the democratic opposition and divide the regime. And if you want to get back to democracy after an authoritarian interlude, the same principle applies. So what could we be doing from the outside to try to mediate, induce, encourage, and, you know, a little bit even leverage this kind of unification? We need to get elections. We absolutely need to get elections. And the message to Saeed should be no more aid, no more cooperation of any kind until you develop a plan to release political prisoners and hold credible elections. Large-scale popular mobilization has often played a role in getting back to democracy. I think that's kind of moribund now. Nader, you asked about the quartet and its constituent elements. I think some of them are weakened now, and the Labor Confederation, from what I understand, is itself divided. So what might be done by international partners and actors to try and mediate and heal some of those divisions and kind of reinvigorate the morale and capacity of either the quartet actors or some kind of new combination of civil society forces. And finally, my final point again, I return to it, is almost everywhere where democracy had been suspended, was starting to be trashed, constitutionalism was on its back, there was international pressure and support for a renewal of the democratic process and for Democrats. And that is notably inadequate, at least, and to my extremely limited vision, nearly lacking. This is our best hope to regenerate democratic momentum in the Arab world. And I think the United States, and specifically the Biden administration, given all the grand historical promises it's made, rhetorical promises it's made, and again, the European Union, have a moral, and for reasons that several of you have laid out, I think very practical and even strategic obligation to themselves and to all of us to make a priority of Tunisia. And making a priority of Tunisia partly means making a priority of the release of Rached Ghannouchi from his utterly unjustifiable political imprisonment.